If you're enjoying the Health Geeks Book Club podcast, we'd appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, rating, or review, whichever your preferred podcatcher platform allows.
This episode is sponsored by Well Balanced Nutrition and 360 Health.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
Good morning, everybody. It's Eleanor from 360 Health, and we have decided that we want to have a chit-chat about cultural differences. We were sitting here in the studio talking some French, talking about Gaston Whisson. How do you say that?
Gaston Whisson.
Yeah, and Kristen was not familiar with him because she's not quite as old as I am, but he's one of the first...
Not quite as old as I am either.
Oh, no. I'm claiming you. Anywho, it got us talking about different cultures and different foods. And Tim, we're inviting you into this conversation. Kristen, are you here?
I'm here, and it is National Nutrition Month in March. So as a dietitian, it's always a fun month. And the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics usually picks a theme each year. Mm-hmm. And this theme, I'm digging it. It is a world of flavors. So when y'all started talking about
Fat Tuesday. Oh, Tim's Day. Fat Tim's Day.
That's Fat Tim's Day because Fat Tim is in the
also known as Mardi Gras.
Yeah. Laissez le bon temps rouler.
Ooh, and we were talking about that king cake with the little baby in it, and then we said, well, why don't we just invite the audience into this conversation with us? Because we do talk about wellness, we talk about health, and we do talk about individuality. So here's a great opportunity to dig into some of this cultural experiences we've had with foods and health and socialization and all those things that we say make us healthy, right?
Absolutely. And you two seem to have a wide array of flavors that you enjoy and incorporate on a daily basis. Now, I grew up extremely picky, so I feel like I'm just now starting to journey out into the world of food, of different cultures. So I thought I would learn a little bit from y'all today. Would you say you grew up with that kind of variety?
Well, before we get to that, I also want to say, just in the context of our podcast and why are we doing this today,
sure.
Yeah, is that we have read a book that we're going to be talking about in a couple of weeks called Nosedive. Talks about the sense of olfaction. And this topic that we're into today is the one about taste. And taste do influence our daily practices, our daily health issues. And yeah, so now, does that kind of help a little bit about why we would be talking about this on our podcast?
Yeah. Thanks for that context.
Wait. Okay, well, so you asked me about growing up. I would say I was fortunate to have some exposure to different cuisines, although the standard American diet is what I grew up with. And my mom was the primary domestic cook, and we had very well-balanced nutritional meals. There was, protein, carbohydrates. Very rarely did we have a dessert. It was a healthy food and proportion control, fresh from the garden, those kinds of things. But upon occasion, since we had cultural diversity in our neighborhood, there would be German influences, there'd be Italian influences. Not so much the French until later, because Tim and I have been speaking a little French here today.
Yes.
Tell us about your experience.
So
Tim.
my experience is growing up. There were no experiences. There was a mother who did not like to cook, still does not like to cook, does okay, but it was like Sunday. I remember every Sunday was steak day, and they knew no other temperature for steak other than dead and long dead. So
ours was fried chicken on Sundays.
So, but I'm sure it was good though. This was not. So this one growing up, it was always Worcestershire sauce, Heinz 57, Worcestershire, A1, and ketchup, because the steak was like shoe leather.
I needed flavor.
And I needed flavor, so I added those things. And I remember getting older and, going out to eat and finding other foods. So those who don't know, I am the man who ate the town. So food is my
thing.
Is one of my things. And everybody is surprised to find out that I did not come by that naturally. I had to find it myself.
Okay. But don't you think that's part of it? The exploration and discovery.
The discovery,
makes it even better.
The journey is even better. Mm-hmm. But I do wish I had. I grew up in West Virginia, as Eleanor did, I believe, and we did not have a lot of stuff available to us. It was country cooking, but that weird mix of South and North, because we're right in the middle. The whole reason West Virginia is a state is because we didn't want to fight with the South, and we didn't necessarily want to be part of the North.
We seceded.
We did. We seceded from everybody.
Yeah.
We were neutral for the most part.
And stayed in the hills.
Yeah, and inbred. But but we didn't have a whole lot of cuisine to choose from. Right. So I moved here when I was 15.
Here being
in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And still, at that time in 1986, was not a huge culinary expanse. And it was a little bit later, and as things started to show up and it started to grow, I was very excited about that. But I remember going to a steakhouse and ordering it well done, and they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Well, what else should it be?" And they said, "Well, let's try medium well first." And I liked it. So the next time I went, I did medium well. And I'm like, there's something though is just not there. So let's pull back just a little bit more. And I started going with medium rare. And now I actually, according to the cut of meat, I actually am a rare steak eater. One of my favorite foods is steak tartare, which is raw.
I was introduced to that in West Virginia when I was babysitting, and a family that I was babysitting for had a cocktail party, and they had some leftover steak tartare, and they said, "We're going out. You can help yourself to anything." I said, "What is it?" And they said, "Raw meat," and it was horse meat, raw horse meat.
And you ate it?
Yeah, it was really good.
Well, see, here's the thing.
Yeah,
in Europe, horse meat is just as popular as cow meat, but something about here in the United States, we have this high pedestal that we put horses on. Why are they any different? I think it'll be a little tougher.
I think we're going to have to back off from that one.
yeah, but you said you ate that? I've never had horse, but I would certainly.
I was maybe 16 or 17, and it was exotic, and it was, cocktail party, and all the fancy stuff.
And my favorite food is sushi, and the first time I ever ate that, had to get it out of my head what it was, and now I'm like, what does that matter?
Well, I can tell you about fish parasites and liver flukes.
Yes,
I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah, but you can, but the amount of sushi restaurants in this world, they have that under control. That is not an issue anymore. So
until it's not.
But if that's not, then that's the restaurant's problem, not the
exactly.
not the food.
Yeah, or the chef that's been trained how to do that.
Yeah. So I can't tell you the last time I heard anybody come down with a food parasite. Food poisoning is a little bit different, but you're not going to get that from sushi usually. Actually, if sushi's done right, it's the healthiest food you're going to get.
Well, Kristen, you have some experience with sushi or not?
I tried it later in life, but I grew up. I wouldn't even taste the red meat, the steak. Gross me out.
Texture and everything.
The red.
And for your information, anybody's wondering, that is not blood. It's myoglobin.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, because the animals are sanguinated. Very fluid. They are very much sanguinated, which means all the blood's drained. So what you're getting is the juices in the meat, but not blood.
Gotcha.
Same thing as hemoglobin for humans.
Myoglobin's in the muscle tissue.
Right.
Yeah, and it's very similar to hemoglobin, but it's abundant in muscle tissue.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about the sauces he put on there. And the flavors in those sauces, the A1.
Sure, and ketchup.
Yeah, and you as a nutritionist, do you know what they put in those sauces to give them flavor? I know it's got salt. And the ketchup has sugar.
Are you talking about the anchovy paste that's usually
No, that he was putting on that dead steak. He said he had to cover it with A1 and what was the other one? Worcestershire.
Well, I know. Isn't anchovies in Worcestershire?
I don't know. See, I don't know. Flavor.
I got you.
Flavor guide.
Look it up.
Yeah.
I remember I did a reel that's like 3 of the hardest things to say. I'm sorry, I was wrong in Worcestershire.
Worcestershire.
Well, here's the because you think of Massachusetts and there's a town in Massachusetts called Worcester, and it's spelled Worcester. So it's Worcestershire. That's the best way I've ever known to do it.
So do you know what's in it?
I'm looking that up. Ingredients: barley malt vinegar, spirit vinegar, molasses, sugar, salt, anchovies, tamarind extract, shallots.
Tamarind. My son took me to the Indian restaurant. We were going to do some cooking one day, and we have one of those grocery stores here, and he couldn't find the tamarind, and we were a little disappointed. And then we went to another place, and we did find it. That's good stuff.
Shallots, garlic, spice. I don't know what spice constitutes in flavoring, but actually the thing that I have to watch the most is sodium. So if I am dealing with cooking stuff and I know we're probably way off topic here, but if I'm cooking and it calls for soy sauce, what I do is I use the coconut aminos and Worcestershire sauce, because the two of those together have the same flavor profile of soy sauce with only a quarter of the sodium.
Good tip, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Coconut aminos is a great way to reduce your sodium.
Yeah.
And I use that.
And it's got the consistency of soy sauce.
Yes.
Where Worcestershire has a lot of the flavor profile without all the sodium.
Right.
Kristen, you've got a book that I have not read, but I think you have some familiarity with it, and it's really pretty. Why don't you tell our audience what it is?
Sure. It's Cultural Food Practices, and it's just a book by the American Dietetic Association for dietitians to understand different cultural practices, and it's important to be sensitive to that as you're talking to people, because food is more than just food. It's culture. It's what we grew up with, like the stories we're telling.
Memories.
It defines our traditions. So,
well, with this Zoom year or two that we've just all experienced together, that has opened up different communities to me, and in those communities are different cultures.
Yeah.
And so I've made friends with these people. I've never met them, but boy, I've got some good friendships. So one of these gals is living in California, but she's married to a Moroccan, and they spend half the year in Morocco. And she just posted some
such good food.
Well, I'm going there, so if you can help me, I'd like to know. I'm not going to Morocco, but I would like to go into that cuisine because it looks marvelous. She and her teenage daughter and husband spent the weekend making fermented lemons, and she was going to put them in her tangines, and I had no clue what she was talking about. So I got to go look this up. Well, these salted lemons are packed into a jar. You keep them for 30 days. And then you put them in these tangines, which are Moroccan stews, as best I understand. But there's a really cool crockery thing that you cook them in. So
also called a tangine.
Yeah. So now I'm on the hunt for one of those because I think I need one, right. But so that kind of opened up that. And then last year, someone was celebrating the Persian New Year, and I had no clue about that either. And so I made this really good really dark green spinach pie concoction thing that was a recipe from that, and it was marvelous. I think I'll do it again this year. And then with my planking challenge that I do every year, I base that on the Chinese New Year because we do it in January, and then at the end of January, then the new year starts. So, Chinese cuisine, I think, has been probably the one most Americans have more, if they're going out of the American tradition, would know about Chinese food. And then the Japanese. And then some of these Indian restaurants are popping up. I think we're getting more opportunities to explore foods.
Which excites me.
Yeah, me too.
And I was going to ask you, how did you guys get exposed? And it's really just about learning from other people and then getting curious about what they share with you.
Yeah, my thing is since I learned that I didn't have to have my steak the consistency of shoe leather, have been on a quest to find more. And my thing is, if I can't pronounce it, I certainly want to taste it. Mm. I might not like it, but I certainly want to know. Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you guys do? You have like a spinner and you decide what country you're going to cook
So
from?
when football season's happening, that's pretty much off the table because that's Sundays. I don't do anything but watch football. Now that football season's over, we are going back and we spun the wheel.
Who's we?
My wife, Stephanie, and I, and we spun the wheel, and Armenia is the country we're going to explore. And Armenia is in that is a former Soviet country, which I know right now is a hot topic, but it's a former Soviet Commonwealth. It's an independent country now, but it was independent before it got absorbed into the Soviet Union.
And we hope it can remain that way.
Yes, and but it's in a weird spot that's on the border of Europe and Asia, so it has a lot of, and it's also close to North Africa, so it has a lot of North African influence. It has a lot of Asian influence because all the stands are right there with them, and China is only that far on the map from them. So you have all that. Then you have all the European, especially the Eastern European stuff that so rich in culinary stuff. So
wait a minute. Let's talk about borscht.
Okay.
I tried that one.
You tried borscht?
Oh, it was beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I've tried making it myself. And after I served it and an hour went by, my husband said, "Don't do that again."
Tell us what it is.
Oh, it's beet soup. It's beautiful. It's purple and luscious looking, and a big old dollop of sour cream and some chives. And I guess is the way that it was presented to me. But it was not a hit in my home.
And what culture is it from?
Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Borscht.
Yeah.
Borscht.
It is.
Yeah.
It is beautiful, but I don't eat beets of any sort.
Yeah,
so
and we, actually beets are very healthy for us, so I would like to find a way to make that palatable for me. And I don't know if it's just a difference in cultural background, context that just doesn't fit. And like, I like this, but they love it.
Beets to me taste like I can go out and lick the earth and get better taste out of it.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I eat beets, roasted beets
with
goat
good.
cheese. I haven't ventured out, but if it has goat cheese and it has beets, to die for.
But when you do the roasted, baking sheet with sweet potatoes and the green peppers and sweet,
I don't like sweet potatoes.
Onion, and then you put the beets in there. And mushrooms. Put some mushrooms and then garlic. Oh,
that's
God,
a good
it's so good.
combination.
Oh, yes.
Well,
so
you mentioned Moroccan food. I had Moroccan chicken the other day, and it was a lovely combination of spices.
How did you get that?
Well, at Well Balanced Nutrition, we partner with this teaching kitchen called Living Plate, and they have helped me and my clients explore new flavors of the world. And Moroccan chicken was one of those recipes that they did. And I love it because my son likes to measure and help me with the spices. And he goes, "Mom, I can taste the cumin in here." And I was like a proud dietitian mom. Oh, yeah, you can.
Yeah, cumin is big in North African cuisine. So that's a fantastic, and it's good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the African, I was in D.C., I got to go to D.C. a couple of times and spend some time eating. And the African restaurants I didn't get to, but they were on my list. We don't have any here in Winston-Salem, do we?
No, I think there's one. There's an Ethiopian one in Charlotte.
Really?
So I had a client tell me that his kid was eating with his hands, and he was just using that as a learning opportunity. Like, in this culture, that's not really appropriate. But
however,
we should go to an Ethiopian restaurant where that's a normal thing to eat with your hands. And so they went on a day trip as a family to do that. And that is so neat. I love that you did that. Mm-hmm. So now I want to try that.
Oh, yeah. You'll have to report back when you do. It'll be a field trip.
Yes, exactly.
So culture holds us. It connects us. And the table connects us. In all cultures, I think, we all come around a food source. And when we read the Blue Zones, does anybody remember us reading the Blue Zones?
I remember you reading the Blue Zones.
You do? Mm-hmm.
It's a good one.
Yeah, and some of this also came up in that book because there was variety between those 7 communities that tend to have longevity and function as you age. But their diet was important in those, and they were fresh foods cooked geographically, near them, and not processed, no additives, no artificials, and not large quantities. Those things.
Yeah.
So I hope we can encourage our audience to explore the palate and different flavors and broaden. At 360 Health, we have a 7-day healthy cleanse where we have people eat fresh, whole food and nothing processed, and get rid of the alcohols and the coffees and the dairy and the wheat, because those have.
I'm out.
Well, for 7 days, but
it's a short period.
What we call the agriculture, what do they call it? CA, those farms, commercialized commercial agricultural something production. That the food fix was talking about. The big agri, those commercialized food industries are manipulating large numbers of animals and vegetables beyond what we would have in a family garden, and so there are pesticides and residues from all sorts of things and antibiotics and genetically modified organs. So anyway, on this 7-day thing. But the idea is Americans in our community kind of do the same food over and over and over. You get into a routine. You just eat white bread, you eat meat, you eat fat, and
fried food.
Yeah, the vegetables and fruits are not there, basically, and you do it over and over and over and over. So we try to interrupt people at 360 Health and say, just reset yourself and discover the world of flavor. It is a wonderful experience. And then maybe you can incorporate that into what we are learning through our reading, is to establish healthy lifestyles. It's not just one thing that's going to keep us healthy. It's the lifestyle we lead.
Yeah, and it's not just what we eat, it's the connection we make to our food and how we eat it mindfully, and being mindful of the foods we choose based on, what you were saying is going on in the food culture.
Mm-hmm. That we're learning about as we do this reading, right?
Absolutely. And at Well Balanced Nutrition, we also like to encourage you to branch out. And this month, we're talking about the flavors of the world and adding that flavor to your food in a fast and easy way to, so you're not eating brown, bland foods all the time.
Overcooked.
Add some flavor. Well, this has been a really fun conversation. Thank you guys for talking about food and culture with me.
And we'll probably do it again because this was one of our favorite topics.
Yes. And it is. It's in all the books we read, and it is a part of wellness and our health is our food and a connection to it.
All right. So stay tuned when we review that book called Nosedive, because it'll have a definite connection to this conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, y'all. Don't forget to leave us a comment or connect with us over on Facebook or Instagram. We're at Health Geeks Podcast.
And thank you, Tim, for joining us.
Absolutely. And all the listeners, don't forget to hit subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. Hit the alert bell so you know when the new episodes are coming out. And give us a like, a review, a rating, anything that your podcatcher allows. And that will help us bring you more awesome content.
Thank you.
And opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.